Hey, it's Meatball.
And Mark.
And this is the Rocker Morning Show on demand from 107.7 RKR.
At your job, do you ever have to deal with a nose roller? How about a snub pulley? Well, if you're installing a new conveyor belt system, dealing with the different components can sound like you're speaking a foreign language. Luckily, you've got a team ready to help. Grainger's technical product specialists are fluent in maintenance, repair, and operations. So whenever you want to talk shop, just reach out. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
107.7 RKR, it is the Rocker Morning Show with Meatball, Mark Frankhouse. On the line today, the legendary guitar player from the band Styx, who are going to be here very, very soon. James Young, thanks for joining us this morning.
We're looking forward to it.
Man,
I Michigan, yes, indeed.
Well, and it's funny you said that too, because Michigan seems to really love, this particular era of classic rock, and Styx is, right in the heart of that nostalgia. You're a Chicago guy too. So can you talk about your experiences with the crowds in Michigan and how they've treated Styx in the past?
We've always had great times there, and we've, been on double bills with Nugent many times. And, so Ted is Ted, of course, and you can't compete with him exactly, but we're different enough that was a great package, and it's rock and roll guitars and guys screaming rock lyrics out, and and then hoping it sounds musical.
You mean to tell me that you're not jumping out there after watching Ted Nugent, not jumping out on stage as Styx with loincloths on and things like that?
Well, Ted's entitled to behave any way he wants to, and bless him because he's a unique character. and as Ted sometimes says a lot of wonderful, wild things that sometimes charm everybody and sometimes maybe get him in a little trouble. But I try to avoid that little trouble for me.
Right.
But Ted, he's a unique individual, and we love him.
Well, you've been with Styx since the very beginning, and I'm curious about the beginnings of you as a guitar player, because I know you've been doing music pretty much your entire life. But as an up and coming guitarist, was there a particular artist or artists that really drove you to want to make this your career?
Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah,
easily.
Saw him play live 5 times.
Wow.
I'm old enough for that. And,
we call that nostalgic now.
However we want to phrase it.
I would imagine you would put some of those shows as some of the best that you've been to in an audience member capacity, I would take it.
I saw Led Zeppelin live twice with the original lineup.
Oh,
Jimmy Page,
gosh.
Robert Plant,
yeah,
and John Bonham. So
right, yeah, they had that legendary show at the Pontiac Silverdome. I think there was 80,000 people there or something.
Yeah, that one I think is on the record books just about what you said. Yeah.
How much, so growing up listening to Hendrix and seeing Zeppelin and, seeing these idols in rock and roll, as you're coming up and maturing in your, career as a guitar player and eventually becoming into Styx, how much of that influenced, what you put into the music you were writing and the stage presence you put out there for your work and for Styx in general?
Well, clearly anytime I could sneak a little Hendrix in there, I would.
Yeah.
And a little Zeppelin. Everyone, every drummer wanted to get the sound that Zeppelin has on those drums, and like on Kashmir or whatever. And so it just was, times were great. Everything was a little bit different, and the baby boom was coming into its own crazy self, and which I'm part of, and I don't know. We were blessed to be able to have great fun doing what we did, and actually, being successful at it and selling 7 million copies of The Grand Illusion in 1977, which was released on July 7th, 1977. Are we superstitious? Number 7, yes.
Literally your lucky album, it sounds like.
And then some, yes.
Styx came up in Chicago, and we were talking with some other rock and roll icons in the past about that scene in Chicago around the time that Styx was coming up. There was so much talent, so many huge bands came out of that time period. What was it about Styx you think that kind of stuck your foot out above the rest, that was able to kind of break through the mold there?
Well, I think that we weren't sort of a one note or one trick pony or a one note symphony. Dennis Young, he could write a ballad, he could sing a ballad. Me, as I was Hendrix and Zeppelin, I was wanted to be Hendrix and Jimmy Page all put together, whatever. And so we were able to sort of pick and choose the things that we liked and try and combine them into our own unique style. And I think in many ways we did succeed. We ultimately were one of the big pomp rockers, I guess you would say. A song like The Grand Illusion is, that's sort of a pompous intro to Welcome to the Grand Illusion, and it's,
right.
But it worked. So, and you don't get anywhere if you don't take any risks. And we took some risks, and most of them succeeded. So we're, knock on wood, we're dumb rock and roll luck.
Styx has kind of become one of those iconic bands where you've been around long enough where you eventually become there's an element of becoming a caricature of yourself and a cult classic to new generations. One moment I remember in particular is from the movie Big Daddy with Adam Sandler.
Oh, right.
Styx gets some very particular love from little Julian, who says, you're the best band in the world and you only got a bad rap because most critics are cynical a-holes. First of all, we agree. And second of all, I was curious, about that moment. Did Sandler clear that with you guys, or did you find out when you saw the movie like the rest of us?
We found out, I think we got a chance to see it before the public did, but, we found out it was in there, and, we, as a band, really didn't really get too edgy with the music, but to have Sandler come on there, who was at that point a pop culture icon,
yeah,
was Saturday Night Live, and say that is we happened to meet him and have a drink with him, not soon there, very soon thereafter, I should say.
Yeah,
and he's just a great guy, and he's a fan of ours, and we're a fan of his, and it worked out great.
When you heard that come out of that little, he had to have been 8 years old at the time. When you heard that come out of his mouth, did you just die laughing in that moment?
Of course.
Oh man. Something interesting too about Styx is you have continued to not only tour, but put out new music, throughout the years. Crash of the Crown came out in 2021, which honestly was a really great album. But do you find it difficult as a classic rock band to get your new material out there to the public to hear now?
Yeah, that's the problem. But we're creative artists, so we do what we do, and sometimes it you hit it out of the park, and the public sees it that way, and other times we think we hit it out of the park, but it just doesn't get it's received more just differently.
Yeah.
And we've tried to evolve and but yet be true to our roots as we go forward. It's showbiz. Not every movie that every great film star makes sells tickets, and you just have to keep doing the work, and eventually something good's going to happen.
Yeah. Sounds like you just need to reach out to Sandler again and be like, hey, we got this song. We want to put it in your next movie.
You guys have been touring also with Foreigner as well, and then they're basically your peers. You guys came up together pretty much, which is one of this year's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame entrants. Do you think has Styx kind of come up in that conversation for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Perhaps, I don't know. I'm not terribly concerned about it.
Yeah.
We sold, as I said, 7 million copies of The Grand Illusion, and I think the credentials are there, but the decision making of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is by 9 guys on the East Coast.
Right.
It's very East Coast centric in terms of who gets a vote, and Jan Wenner, who is editor publisher of Rolling Stone magazine, if that still exists, and he's kind of he's the driving force of that whole thing.
Yeah.
And I've had a sit down with him back maybe 10 years ago, and and I just think he's not inclined to put somebody. He's very biased. It's got an East Coast bias, and but the reality is that's what 10 very biased people from one narrow pickings of human beings about what they like and what they don't like, what they think is great, what they don't care for, and so it's I stopped losing sleep over the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame decades ago.
Yeah, well, I think it was, and I kind of agree with this too. Is I think it's Bruce Dickinson from Maiden who that had kind of been brought up about them too, and they were like, but we're still making music. And I think that applies for bands who are still making music, is like, why put us in a museum? We're not done yet. Like if you do that, that pretty much means it's over for you. And it's like, you guys are out there making new music and still touring. You guys aren't even done yet.
Amen.
And I mean, just going back to your origins too, I found it amazing that you've got this bachelor's degree in mechanical and aerospace engineering, and yet you decide to play guitar for a living. In fact, I think you were doing both of them at the same time, weren't you?
Well, I never really get a job as an aerospace engineer.
Yeah.
Because of what I really, my dad, I wanted to quit school, when I was like 13 years old. I want to play rock and roll. And, so he said, I saved money for all my kids to go to college, which he did do. God bless him. And, so I went and I got my degree. So he couldn't really squawk at me too much. I did have a degree. But then, then the band started becoming very famous. And then he and all of his peers were going, hey, you see your son's doing really well.
Yeah.
And so it was, it's, flexibility and adaptability is my philosophy of life. You can't change everything around to the way you want it, and you've got to take the cards that are dealt to you and do the best you can with them.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned your dad there. He was also pretty musically talented as well. Did that have an influence in you wanting to pursue music yourself?
Not in particular. My dad actually talent was kind of squashed because of his very strict Protestant upbringing, and so he was involved in a lot of charities and people doing good things for others, and even sit down play a little piano for us. So my dad would he could basically pick up a tune by ear and just bash it out, and it might have been perfect, but it impressed a lot of people, and so he couldn't really squawk too much at us about those electric guitars.
Maybe not so keen on the instrument you chose, but
Well, my oldest sister, I mean, she could sight read. And my aunt, that was a church organist, they could both sight read a very complex piano and organ music. And remember, you just sit down and I'd be going, what?
Yeah.
But I come from a talented family, and I just happen to be in the right place at the right time with the right stuff. So there's dumb luck involved everywhere.
Right.
God bless dumb luck.
Boy, ain't that the truth. You've done a few solo albums during your career. Is there any desire to write another one, or are you pretty content making, just kind of the occasional appearance and doing live shows here and there between Styx gigs?
Well, it's I have to say I'm not a highly motivated writer anymore, and And the solo records I did one with Jan Hammer. He was in the Mahavishnu Orchestra, and I was just blown away by that jazz fusion thing that they did. And but that record went nowhere.
Right.
But I didn't have a major label deal, and at that point in time, because Dennis and Tommy, my colleagues in Styx, they both had, like, Tommy had written some hit songs, Too Much Time on My Hands.
Mm-hmm.
Things, and Dennis, Come Sail Away, and even though I played a big role in the sort of arranging of Come Sail Away, because
right.
my rocket science background said that sailing ship's got to turn into a starship at the end of this song.
Right.
and Dennis wrote the lyric, but I gave him the idea, and so we did great work together, and. I don't know. I look back on what we did, and I'm extremely proud of it. Nobody's perfect, and I don't know. I love being on stage and performing, and seeing the look in people's eyes, and they're just they're excited, and you can't duplicate that sound volume with your own stereo. You just can't, and to be amongst the crowd of everyone who's really resonating with what's coming off the stage, and that it's and get paid for it. I've been blessed.
Yeah. Well, now, and you're coming up now probably on what, second and third generations of people who, their parents and their parents listened to Styx when they were growing up, and so on and so forth. Now you've got, the kids of kids of kids who grew up with you now. That's got to be an awesome feeling as well.
I'm not complaining.
James, it was a pleasure to talk to you. Looking forward to the show at the Wings Event Center next week. Again, grab some tickets. And if you want to check out this full interview, it's available on the on-demand button on the 1077 RKR app. Thanks for hanging out with us today, James.
My pleasure.